Gary's not.
Gary Nelson's up.
Gary's not. We only have one.
And Jerry?
Jerry,
Did you get these?
Okay, you guys ready?
Are you
Yeah, I
happy?
am.
Yeah, well,
I'd like to call this the meeting of the St. Genevieve Tax Increment Financing Commission to order. First order of business is the approval of agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the agenda?
Move to approve it.
Second.
Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes of the last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
At this time, we'd like to have an overview of the purpose of the public hearing and a brief explanation of the program. Shannon, would you please take that?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Shannon Creighton. I'm an attorney with Gilmore and Bell. We've been engaged by the City of St. Genevieve as special counsel to assist them through this process. We appreciate all of you coming tonight. Can everyone hear me in the back? Okay. What I'd like to do is go through just a very brief explanation of what TIF is, or tax increment financing. Tax increment financing is a redevelopment tool authorized by Missouri law to redevelop blighted and or conservation areas, which are areas that are not yet blighted but show several factors that may lead to blight in the future, that are otherwise not going to be subject to redevelopment without the assistance of this tool. Now, tax increment financing, or TIF, is not a new tax. It's a tax redirection. Essentially, I'll go through a brief explanation of how the financing works. When a TIF plan is approved, there are two revenue sources for any project. One is called pilots, or payments in lieu of taxes. Now, when a plan is approved, the assessed valuation in the area where the TIF is adopted is frozen in time. At that point, then any project that comes in and improves that area, the assessed valuation would arguably go up. Any taxes applied to that new assessed valuation, that incremental assessed valuation, are then captured and redirected to the city, put into a special account, and used to pay redevelopment costs. Now, pilots, again, are property taxes, and 100% of those new TIF revenues, new property taxes, are available to be captured. Now, there is a second form of revenue, what we call economic activity taxes, or EATs, and those are essentially sales and utility taxes. Now again, like pilots or like property taxes, the base economic activity taxes are set at the time the plan is adopted. Any new taxes generated over that amount are essentially split in half. Those are called economic activity taxes, and 50% of those new taxes can be captured by the city and used to pay project costs. So, at that point, every taxing district in the area would still get all of the base revenue, so all the property taxes that they received prior to the adoption of the plan, and all the economic activity taxes that they received prior to the adoption of the plan, plus 50% of the new sales tax revenues. Now, the first step in adopting a TIF is the creation of a TIF Commission. Excuse me. TIF commissions can have a variety of different membership, but in this county, The TIF Commission is made up of 11 individuals, 6 appointed by the city, 2 appointed by the county, 2 appointed by the school districts in the area, and 1 individual that represents all other taxing districts. Now, the purpose of a TIF Commission is to review the redevelopment plan, which is the overview or the umbrella document in terms of the projects. It's not specific. It gives the framework for how the redevelopment projects will work. Now, the TIF Commission will review the plan and then hold a public hearing, which is why you're all here tonight. The public hearing, we will start in a minute, but that, at the end of tonight's meeting, the public hearing will actually be continued to another date, next week. At that time, the public hearing will be closed, and the plan will then be subject to review by the TIF Commission for recommendation. There will be a resolution whether or not they recommend this plan to the Board of Aldermen. Now, the Board of Aldermen has final approval of the redevelopment plan, and even if this TIF Commission does not recommend it for approval, then the Board of Aldermen can override that with a 2/3 majority vote. I think that's probably at this point. I'm going to now turn it over to the chair of the TIF Commission, who's going to overview the process for the public hearing.
I want to start with a continuation of the overview and then the procedures for public comment, which we intend to follow pretty closely. The purpose for the public hearing and procedures for public comment on March 4th, 2013. The Tax Increment Financing Commission of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri is conducting a public hearing pursuant to the Real Property Tax Increment Allocation Redevelopment Act, the revised statutes of Missouri as amended, known as the TIF Act. Members of the TIF Commission have been appointed by the city, the school district, the county, and other taxing districts to conduct this public hearing. Following the conclusion of the hearing, which may be at this meeting or a subsequent meeting, the TIF Commission will make a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen regarding the following items: the approval of the redevelopment plan for the downtown St. Genevieve Tax Increment Financing District, St. Genevieve, Missouri, 2013, the designation of the redevelopment area described in the plan, the approval of the 2013 development project described in the plan, and the advisability of adopting tax increment financing. The development plan does not confer any development rights or any other special privileges to any person. Those rights can only be granted pursuant to the redevelopment agreement between the city and a proposed developer. The TIF Commission is recommending body only. The Board of Aldermen has the role, a sole and exclusive authority to decide whether to approve the redevelopment plan, the redevelopment area, and the redevelopment project, and to adopt tax increment financing. Nevertheless, the TIF Commission recognizes the importance of public comment in making its recommendations to the council, and therefore seeks input from all interested parties. The earliest date on which the Board of Aldermen will consider the redevelopment plan is March 28, 2013. The procedures for public comment. The TIF Commission wishes to hear from as many interested parties as possible in the time available at the public hearing. Depending on the number of people who wish to speak, the chairman may impose a time limit. Speakers are to limit their comments to the issues embodied in the notice of this hearing. In addition, speakers are requested to avoid making comments that are repetitive, although speakers may feel free to express agreement with previous comments. This is not a forum for personal grievances, and such grievances will not be tolerated. It's the Commission's goal to allow everyone to speak the full time they need to make their point. I would ask you that once you've made your point, if you come around full circle and start to make it again, then I will probably ask you to please allow the next person to speak. As you make your comments, please step to the podium, one person at a time, and state your full name so it will be on record with the commission. We have a few things on hand tonight. We've reviewed the plan. We would ask to receive written comments from taxing jurisdictions, receive written comments from the public, receive oral comments from the public, and set a date for continuation of a public hearing if necessary. Do we have any written comments from excuse me?
Maybe it would be helpful for the audience if Chauncey just gave an overview of this particular plan,
Okay.
some of the projects. So why don't you go ahead and open the public hearing, okay, just say the public hearing is now open.
The public hearing is now open. Chauncey?
Yeah, thank you. My name's Chauncey Bakite. I work with Southeast Missouri Regional Planning Commission, and the City of St. Genevieve engaged our firm to assist in putting the plan together. What we have looked at is an area in the downtown, primarily in the downtown. It's about 300, is exactly 300 separate parcels and approximately 157 acres. The area runs from roughly the railroad tracks on out to Market Street to basically about 600 foot, I guess, from Highway 61. Encompasses the area where Built Best used to be, that vacant building. Goes as far north as the old mill, and just to give you an idea about the scope of where we're talking about. The projects that we're looking at, there's a budget put together that includes about $24 million worth of total projects that the city would like to see happen somewhere over the course of the next 23 years. The first phase of that is broken down into a more manageable number, but it's still a rather large number, $8.1 million worth of projects that they would like to see enacted starting in 2013. Those projects include a building stabilization rehabilitation grant or loan program. The purpose of that is to try to restore some of the buildings before they become further dilapidated than what they are, and try to bring back some of the downtown. TIF allows for several different types of redevelopment. I think Shannon talked about a few of those, and this particular project would be considered as instead of calling the area blighted, it would be a conservation area. And the purpose of that is the act allows for the city to make and the TIF Commission to make that recommendation to go ahead and try to stabilize that downtown before it becomes totally blighted. And so the building stabilization program will take a step in that direction. The second project we're talking about was one in at Main and Merchant Street to rehab the property in that area. Also looking at streetscape signage and electric for the downtown, streets and sidewalks, parking lots, stormwater improvements, environmental improvements, and additional building improvements, possibility of an RV park, water improvements, sewer improvements, facade improvements to some of the buildings, demolition and site development at a later date in the next phase, things that would happen after the initial projects, property acquisition, and then the soft costs such as engineering and architectural, planning, legal, and admin. Total 2013 redevelopment projects amount to $8,193,750. The intent is that once development starts, it'll act as a catalyst for future development. And then, as Shannon specified earlier, the monies go into a special allocation fund. The city would enact a redevelopment agreement with the developer and pay those costs, reimburse those costs to the developer out of the revenues that are generated. That's in a nutshell.
Very good. Public comments? We are now open to public comments.
Go to the microphone.
See if there's any written comments.
Are there any, excuse me, are there any written comments from any tax entities? Written comments from the public? To express your comments, we'd like to ask you to please go to the microphone and state your name.
Hi, I'm Linda Wagner, the county assessor, and I just want to go on record and say that I accept whatever responsibilities I have with this. It'll create a lot of work for our office to monitor 300 parcels and their change in value, but, you know, we're there, that's our job, so we'll do that. The other thing that I just wanted to say is that future assessments cannot be influenced by that 2% inflation factor that was used in the cost-benefit analysis. I know that that was just a guess, but I wasn't consulted on any facts, so I just have a concern about that. And that, and that if there's any appeals on any of these properties. I've talked to you, Tom, about that.
Yes, Linda, we have talked about that, and I've consulted with Chauncey about that. And really, that should be stated in the agreement
Right,
signed with the Board of Aldermen to any potential developers.
right.
Not
I
a
just wanna
blanket
make
statement.
sure that that's
Yeah,
out in the open, that we're all aware of it, because in another TIF that we have right now, I do have an appeal, so that's just a concern. So,
I think that is well noted. And you think that 2% that number was too high, is that correct?
well, history hasn't shown that.
Right.
Since 2007, it's been kind of flat, so, you know, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, and I know how we arrived at it, why we got it in there, but it might not be practical. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Please don't be shy. When everybody's done with public comments, we're going to close the meeting, or we're going to cease. So please step right forward.
My name is Larry Blucker. I'm business manager, secretary, treasurer for Local 829 over here. What I want to know is the city going to tell us what to do with these properties?
Absolutely not.
Because like 3 years ago, we put $27,000 of tuck pointing in the building over there and painting and stuff, which I know that can't come into play now. It's only new investments, right?
That's correct.
Okay. On a new investment, we recoup that from our property tax, is what you're saying? Or from, because we don't have no sales tax, we're not a business.
Are you a not-for-profit organization?
Yeah.
Then really just doesn't apply. Is that correct, Chauncey? If you don't pay any tax, do you pay property taxes now?
We pay property taxes, yes.
Yeah.
But we don't pay, like, we don't have, anything to sell. We don't do
Well,
business.
There's really two ways to recover funds. And one is the two increments that we talk about. One is the increment of the property tax.
Yeah.
If you spend money on your building, your property tax, your value would go up. So your property taxes will go up pursuant to the value increase. And that would be the increment. So you could recover funding there, but if you have no sales tax, obviously you can't recover any funding there. So, and that would be part of the process when any developer or investor or business goes to the Board of Aldermen to try to go through the process. They're gonna make it very clear to you exactly where you would fit in.
So if we want to make improvements, we got to come to Boulder, Alderman.
You would
And get a
have to be,
permit.
you would have to be approved to participate in the TIF if you wanted to get TIF funding to make your improvements. Other than that, you just follow the regular city codes. So I think the answer to your question is no, you don't have to come to the city to ask them to make improvements on your property.
All right, thank you.
My name's Beth Caldwell. I own a home and a business within the proposed district, and I've been trying to read about this as much as I can. This is the first meeting I've been able to go to, so I apologize if I ask a question that everybody else knows the answer to. As a private homeowner, will this affect me in any way? Or is it mainly for commercial properties?
Under the, there will be guidelines for this grant program that the Board of Aldermen will be reviewing and considering and approving. Currently, the proposed guidelines would include residential buildings. So if there was a project, you could apply, just like a business owner, to the Board of Aldermen. If your project is accepted by them, then it could be subject, available for TIF funding.
Okay, so for example, if I wanted to try to do this, to put a new roof on my house, I would go through the whole process that I read about, and then for me, it would just apply as far as the property taxes go if it raised the value of my house.
Right. Your application would be subject to the Board of Aldermen's approval. But that is, if there was increase in your assessed valuation for your home and you had additional property taxes generated from your home, that would be available to be captured by you to rebate that back.
Okay. From what I understand, basically, I have to pay for the whole thing up front, get the bids, and this would only be,
Beth?
Yes.
I think we'd like to have Chauncey take a run at your specific question as
Okay.
well.
I'm just trying to understand in
Yeah.
really simple.
Well, I think it's a
terms.
great question. I think every homeowner in the district is going to want to know these answers.
Yeah. And it's very difficult when you talk about will this project be eligible or not, because a lot of stuff will be eligible, but the real problem comes in when you look at what kind of increment would be developed as a result of you completing your project. And keep in mind, every time there's a increment that's developed, that means your taxes have gone up. And so new and higher assessed value, that increment between what it is today and what it would be after development is what you would get paid back if the city agrees to your proposal. And each one of those redevelopment agreements will come before this Board of Aldermen for approval.
So the economic viability of improvements to your home,
Not much.
probably not going to be a big benefit.
Okay.
And it may prove to be no benefit.
Okay. But if we were to go for the business, we would look at projected future gains of,
Sales tax.
of,
And that's really how any one who participates in the TIF recovers funding.
okay.
You're going to recover a very small amount based on the increment of your property taxes. If you are a business and you hit a home run with the improvements to your business and you raise the revenue level significantly, where you raise your sales tax significantly, that's the significant number that makes it appealing to participate in the TIF.
Tom, doesn't it also, I bet it doesn't it also help them on a business if, let's just use for instance, let's say a business is approved for $250,000 and it goes up to $1 million, that other 4 times that property value, they get to recoup that over the 23 years, don't they? Am I
Well,
right there? I didn't quite understand
you-
it.
the
I'm
inc-
sitting on the board,
the-
I'm asking more than it.
The increment
Yeah.
of, so your business is worth
4 times what it was before, say 3 times, 2 times, whatever.
Well, let's take a
You're
more,
paying, let's
let's
say-
take a more realistic approach. If you invest $100,000 into a building, what is the amount of property tax increase?
Well, let's just say it was worth 100 and you do another 100. So you're gonna double what
Well,
your assessed
now that-
value is, right? Isn't that correct?
Well, just because you spend 100 doesn't mean that it's going to increase the assessed value by 100.
Cost doesn't mean value.
Yeah. So maybe it
Who's
increases,
down with that, though? The assessor?
Yes.
Okay.
so maybe that your 100,000 may increase your property value as a number that we've discussed on the board at $15,000. It won't translate directly dollar for dollar into increased property value.
A million,
Pardon me?
15,000.
Oh, excuse me, 15,000 would be $1 million
The
increase.
rule of.
1.5%.
A rule of thumb is, 1.5%, of what your cost is. And that is if everything is assessed at what cost is, and it probably won't
And
be.
using that million, so 15,000 you say? Or 1,500?
15,000 per million.
15,000, so times 23 years, you could recoup that if you've done that.
Right.
If you've done $1 million, you're gonna get an extra 15,000 back to help recoup
For,
the cost
for,
of
you'll get
23 years.
you'll get 345,000 of it back.
Yeah, right, which is not bad.
That's the whole idea of the TIF, is to, it's a vehicle for development and investment.
And at the end of 23 years, then Linda or whoever's.
Well, yeah.
Whatever it says.
I would like just to clarify that when you're talking about property taxes, the $15,000 or 15,000 that we're talking about is increased assessed valuation. You then multiply that by, you divide it by 100
Yeah, I'm
and
sorry,
then multiply
you're
it by a tax levy. And that's the amount of incremental property taxes that you would be
So it wouldn't
generating.
be, it wouldn't be the
It
15,000
wouldn't
that
be
was just being
15,000.
spoken
I just wanted to
about.
clarify
Right.
that, if there's a $1 million investment, it does not equate to $15,000 of TIF revenue for pilots.
Approximately, what would it be?
Hang on, right?
It's about $5
I
per
think that's what
100.
these people are trying to find out. That's why I'm asking it, just even so I'm clear. I think that's why a lot of these people are here.
$5 per $100 of
Assessed
assessed
value.
valuation.
$1 million if it's fully valued at that by the assessor's office, that building, and that would be a $330,000 basically. Assessed value times $5 divided by 100, you do come up about 15,000 for on $1 million
Assessed
real
value,
estate.
Full assessed value.
Yeah, if it is, your assessment is 32% for commercial,
Right.
19% for residential. Like I said, a good rule of thumb is what the actual value is, and if the assessor assesses it at 100% of value, you can figure about 1.5% of cost, if cost relates to value from the assessor's perspective, of what taxes would be.
And along the same amount on an investor to recoup on federal and state, you get 20% tax credit from the state, 20% from the feds. So if you spend $1 million, you're gonna get 40% tax credits. Isn't that right? Isn't that the way the tax
That's-
credits are?
I have no idea.
Yeah, but it affects especially the historic building. That's
Well,
what it is.
that's really not the mission of the TIF Commission on federal taxes.
But it adds in to what a person can recoup if they wanted to do something. That's what it is. Get on the internet and find it.
I still have more questions.
Please.
So my next question is, as a business owner, right now, we are not planning to do any kind of renovation or restoration to our building. So being part of this proposed district, what someone else does can potentially only benefit us as well, right? Because isn't the whole idea of the district to improve the entire area and get more people here, get more businesses here?
Yep.
They're gonna spend more money and create more revenue for the city. Is that correct? And that's
That's
kind of the idea?
absolutely correct.
That's the goal.
Okay.
That's
So-
the whole goal of this, of the TIF, is to encourage development and investment.
Does it cost the city anything?
It has cost the city the upfront legal fees and
Okay.
the upfront fees from Southeast Missouri Regional Planning Commission. In the future, the city has no front-end loading capability. A TIF can be a lot of different things and it can be created a lot of different ways. The city of St. Genevieve, the day after this is passed, if the Alderman passes, does not have a checkbook with money in it to give businesses loans to invest in their properties. This is a self-funded, on the front end, it will be self-funded. If you participate in the TIF as an investor or developer and you're participating, and 3 other people in the room are participating, if they do really, really well, you don't do so well, it's not going to affect you. After the base level is met for 2012, the tax is paid in, then individual performance is what's going to be rewarded. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So let's say I don't participate, but other properties do. What do I have to lose besides I'm not participating? Why would there be a reason to not do this? Let's play devil's advocate here. Why would we not want to have this TIF district?
I think that's a great question, and I think the answer is why wouldn't we want to have this district?
Okay.
The city is not the city is not at risk of losing money.
Okay. Okay.
If
And my taxes aren't going to go up.
your taxes may go up
The property values.
if your neighbors make big investments and their property value goes up because of their investments, that may drive your property value up as well. So if your property value goes up, your assessment may increase and you may have to pay a higher tax. But my question there is, who doesn't want their property value
Value to go up. Right. Okay.
That would be a pretty nice, bump in the road. That'd be a nice problem to have.
And that property value would increase whether there was a TIF district or not.
Right, but now just some people get to benefit from having the TIF.
We're trying to encourage investment and development.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
My name is Mike Hankins. I own a property here in town. My question is, I was on landmarks, and I haven't heard a word that you've said about landmarks and all of this. And you said there would be signage and building changes. Are you saying that they'll be able to bypass landmarks? But you haven't spoken about
Well,
landmarks.
I
I'm just
can-
wondering what's
I'd be
going to
happy
happen to
to-
our historic district.
I'll be happy to address that directly. No. The TIF does not allow for a bypass of any building codes, the landmarks regulations, or any other regulations in the city.
So they'll still have to go through landmarks
Yeah.
to make the changes to
absolutely.
the exterior of their building. They don't have anything to do with the interior,
Well,
only
the
the
things that
exterior.
that the landmarks regulates, yes.
Okay, that's all I would ask.
Bob Schmidt. From your experience, the board here and Mr. Buckeye, is this an idea that has been tried frequently in the southeast Missouri area, in other communities that have similar problems with development and what have you? And if so, has there been an improvement? And if it's not been tried elsewhere, is there a reason for that?
There's been, I personally have worked with Farmington, Perryville, Park Hills, Bon Terre, Jackson, Cape Girardeau, Park Hills again, Farmington again. There's been numerous projects throughout southeast Missouri. And I would say that they have all been fairly successful. one of the most successful TIF projects that I have had the honor to work on is right here in St. Genevieve. When the project had to do with the shopping center, the plaza, and it was a continuation of a project that started back in the early 90s to bring water and some other services down to the old grandpa store. That was a very successful project. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think any of the ones have been, you know, unsuccessful from that perspective. None of them have failed.
So has it improved the well-being of the communities that you mentioned? Or is it still ongoing? And can we look to that and say, hey, it worked here, see what we can do? Is that, is it a positive outcome?
None of the projects have been totally complete yet. Keep in mind, the thing can last for 23 years until completion, so it takes a while to get all of the projects complete. You know, Farmington, I think, has been successful. They used some funding over there to assist with the new courthouse expansion, and there's a lot of stuff happening over in the downtown Farmington area. Perryville has just went into effect in the past year, but there's already, I count them up, about 4 different buildings in the downtown that have started to see some major renovation on. So, you know, it's been fairly successful down there.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sam Conlon. I have a home and business on North Main Street. I have a couple of questions that I hope weren't answered previously. I currently own 2 buildings. One of them, I believe, is the only building excluded from the downtown area on our map, because I'm the only building on the other side of the railroad track. So my first question is, how hard is it to change the map should a, you know, great project come up? Is my building out, Tom? Do you know?
Let's look at the map.
Okay, well, I guess that part's not that important, I suppose.
She's, it's right here. Right here. So would you go through the, yeah, it's not going to qualify, Sam, because it's in a
One building!
floodplain.
All right, well, okay, I have.
So we went through great discussions
I totally
to
get it.
get through floodplain issues and all the things that did develop the map.
All right. My other question is, do you, you know, what if I wanted to buy another piece of property? Is this for people who already own pieces of property who want to improve it? Is it just to get anybody to buy a building? Or is there any help for helping people buy a building to then take advantage of TIF?
Well, if this would be really between you and your lender, and this is a great tool to take to a lender. If you have already done some work, some homework, and you've discussed TIF opportunities, you can go to the board in lieu of financing and make an application. Then you get approved. You can go to a lender and say, look, here's my business plan. Here's what I intend to do. I've been approved for TIF financing, and this is how it will affect my my business plan. So
So it could, in a roundabout way, help me
It's
get-
actually, it's very good in a significant way, when you seek out financing. If you can go to your lender, and lenders are going to understand how TIF works, and you say, look, I qualify, I've went through these preliminary steps, I've been approved in lieu of financing, I think that can be a great asset to secure financing for development.
Okay.
I'd like to
Yes,
add one
Mr.
thing.
Toma.
It can't be used for new construction.
It cannot be used for
No,
new
it's,
construction. Right, improve.
It can be used for, cannot be used for vertical construction. It can be used for site preparation, infrastructure, but not for 2x4s and bricks to build a building, a new building.
Not a new.
Possibly land acquisition.
Pardon me?
Subject to the Board of Alder land acquisition.
And everything that we're talking about now is subject to the Board of Aldermen's approval.
Right.
Thank you.
Good evening, Don Schmidt. I was just curious, would it be possible for someone to discuss the, what would you say, the rationale as to how the boundaries for this TIF were set? When I look at the map, I see quite a few little odd fingers here and there. I myself am sitting here at the southernmost limit, and I'm kind of going, I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But I'm kind of going, why am I in this TIF?
Well, I'll start with, to address your question, and I'll probably ask Chauncey to help me a little bit. Initially, the entire thought process around this was a downtown economic redevelopment plan, focused on the downtown business district. To create the map, to pick up the different opportunities that may lie in the future for investors, the lines have to be continuous. So you can't take something over here and then pick up a building over there, and then pick up a building over here. You've got to go down the street to pick that up. So if you've seen the map, that's why the map looks a little funny heading out to the previous Built Best property. Floodplains played a big issue. As reported in the paper, when the committee first started to discuss the TIF district and draw lines on a map, I think my direct quote was, we got a little drunk thinking about opportunity. We really said, oh, well, wait a minute, what about this? This is a building somebody in the future may want to develop. This is a big, beautiful home that in the future somebody may want to make a bed and breakfast out of. So we kind of went a little crazy with trying to figure all these things out. Our map really was pretty cut up. So we regrouped and went back to the basics of what are we trying to do here. And this is about downtown economic redevelopment. Then at one point, somehow, a property or two on Highway 61 got drawn into the map, not in commission. So I came to commission and I thought, wait, how'd this happen? This was never about Highway 61. And we've stated publicly in our previous meetings, the other tax entities other than the city, they are giving up some tax revenue for up to 23 years. So they've kind of all agreed that, you know what, we understand. Your city wants to do something downtown and create a more vibrant downtown community, and particularly from a business perspective. And you guys go ahead and do that. We're really not getting a lot of money off that little area you want down there now, so we're not going to miss much. So the other taxing entities will get the same amount of tax from the TIF district in the map that they did in 2012. But we're freezing that for 23 years. So as things happen and development occurs and more sales taxes are paid and some property values may go up, the other taxing entities are going to sit back and say, you know what, we understand you guys need to do that to promote that development, and that's okay with us. Now, I would love to see a big blanket over the entire city limits of St. Genevieve and call it a TIF district. So we all would agree that we want development. So as we started talking about this Highway 61, And what a great idea it would be to try to create this financing vehicle for some of our current businesses and for some properties that are vacant right now. That sounds great. We should do this. It's great for downtown. Why wouldn't it be great for Highway 61? Well, it would be, but the other taxing entities are going to feel a very distinct economic impact from that Highway 61 corridor. So instead of trying to spring that on out of nowhere, without negotiations, without discussions with the other taxing entities, we had to refocus and come back to downtown. This is why we were here in the first place. This is what the mayor formed a committee for, and that committee then developed into the commission, and that's where we've got guidance from Chauncey and Shannon's firm to move forward. I hope that wasn't just too long-winded, and somebody should hit the gavel if I start off like that again.
No, I mean, that's all fine and good. I guess I guess we'll get down to the specifics of it. As the owner of parcel 60 on South 4th Street, why am I in it? You know, I understand that it's a good tool for
Well, I can.
for a commercial
Yeah, I'm sorry.
establishment, and that's fine. I have no problem with
Sorry,
that.
and I will try to address that specifically.
But, you know, it sounds as if, as a residential owner, there's not a lot of benefit
That's exactly right.
as an individual.
That is exactly right.
So,
The
therefore-
downside for you as a property owner is, I'm going to say zero. Anybody would please feel free if you disagree on the commission that that's not an accurate statement. When we were looking at potential areas of development, not with concern of who owned what or where, just this is a spot right here that may have an opportunity. So the vacant field right next to your house, then the two white houses. I apologize that I don't know which one is your house. Is it the
Nice one.
The boundary.
I don't want to offend you. I don't want to offend anybody.
No, there's
but,
other
but
pieces
both of those homes,
Stuff on the other side of me.
both of those homes, when we were having our discussions about the potential development, and then trying to figure out how we can kind of stay in a continuous line, those are homes have a lot of potential. Specifically in our discussions, which you know we're not casting anything other than an open net to say those are two big, high square footage homes that at some point, if somebody wanted to develop either one of those two homes into a bed and breakfast, we'd like to give them the opportunity to take advantage of TIF financing.
Okay,
If
that's
no
all.
one ever does, no one ever does.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Thank you. Any further public comments?
My name is Dale Quisenberry. I own a property on Main Street. It's currently classified as residential. Is there a process that can be made to make it into something else, like as a suggestion you had made, like bed and breakfast? Is there some kind of procedure you would go through and then be able to apply for TIF?
The work the TIF Commission has done and the TIF Act has no provisions for that. You would have to follow through the city's typical provisions and go through the Planning and Zoning Board first. That would be your first step. And then, you know, whatever they would recommend, if it was a special use permit or redistrict, then that would have to go to the Board of Aldermen for approval.
Okay. And so they would have to go through that process first?
Yeah, just like you would if the TIF didn't exist.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Bob Mueller, and I'm a resident in the Historic District, right in the middle of it. And for the record, I'm also the president of the Audubon Redevelopment LLC that's considering to be the lead project on this. One of the things I wanted to kind of clarify is The only way that you can gain a reward here is if your property value goes up and your sales tax goes up. But as the plan is currently written, there's another little kicker in there. Unless the entire district increases its assessed value and the sales tax goes up, you are not guaranteed to receive a dime. And you've made a mention that banks are going to use that as collateral. When banks we've talked to, that doesn't, because there's no guarantee. It's an opportunity, but there's not a guarantee. People have asked me, why am I getting involved in a project at my age? Who said my wife? Yeah. I've been retired 11 years. I've lived in little towns. I've lived in medium-sized towns. I've lived in big towns, Kansas City, Clearwater, Florida. When I retired, I was living in Florida. I was living the American dream. 5 miles from the beach, no snow. Yep.
Bob, could you get on focus on?
Yep.
I'm really liking this.
We decided to come back to St. Genevieve. We didn't have to. We could go in any place in the United States. We came back. Our roots are here. We love small town living, and we love the history of St. Genevieve. I do live in the historic district, and at night, we see it in the daytime and we see it at night. Come down to our neighborhood in the evening. There's no cars down there. There's no businesses open. It's dead after 5 p.m. St. Genevieve has had a stagnant population since 1950. We have 10 more people now in the last census than we had in 1950. Look at Perryville. Look at Farmington. They're all growing. One of the things that worries me is these businesses keep closing. Another one closed last week. Who's going to pay for the roads that we need, the Gabory Creek improvement, all these things? Our taxes are going to have to go up if we don't have a business base to support that. You can sit back and complain about how bad things are, and I got to tell you, I can complain with the rest of them. But I finally decided at my age to put my money where my mouth was. That's why I decided to invest in this project. Am I in it to make some money? Yeah. But I will tell you, my money was invested in municipal bond funds. That's in other states, other cities, not in St. Genevieve. But we chose to invest in St. Genevieve. We're willing to invest our own money. We're willing, the banks are going to require us to use our other assets as collateral. We're going to ask local contractors to bid on the project. We'll have our kitchen consultant is a St. Genevieve County kid that grew up and went good. Our architect is a Valley grad. And we're going to be employing local people if they have the skills or want to develop the skills that we need. And we want a facility that's going to appeal to both local citizens and visitors. I've talked to you as a businessman here, but now I want to talk to you as a resident. About 20 years ago, the Mississippi River almost wiped us off the map. I wasn't here then, but I kept reading the newspaper, and this town came together to save our town. Now, we got this wonderful levee, and they didn't build this levee, this $50 million levee, because of economic consideration. They built it because of the historic buildings that we have here. We have a debt to those people that paid for that levee to preserve our historic structures. TIF will help do that. And the reason is buildings that are not occupied, that are not used, deteriorate. You can see it in our houses, you can see it in our businesses. This program is designed to get those houses and buildings back in use. I want to talk to you about another economic thing, and that's tourism.
Bob?
Yep.
I would like you to ask you to focus specifically on what we're here tonight to talk about.
Well, I thought,
was it
a question?
I appreciate your presentation,
Yep.
and
I'll submit it to you in writing. But look, can I just make one point?
Please.
Tourism is going to be important to us. I'm on the Tourism Advisory Board. People say, well, we need to have more tourists here. But on one hand, we need to have businesses that are open. We need to have shops. We need to have all this. The shop people say, I can't stay open, we don't have people. It's the chicken or the egg. It's time for us to hatch an egg, and TIF is that. So thank you for...
Bob, thank you for your very passionate presentation. I agree completely. Further public comments?
Well, I'm Jan Brons, I have a business here. I'd rather someone else had taken the floor because I thought that was a great ending. I'm all in favor of it, but I do have a quick technical question that came up with Ms. Caldwell's questions and part of your presentation. Let's assume that we're down the road and this has been approved. Subsequent projects, new projects after the installation of the TIF, are they going to, I mean, presumably you'll have a checklist of criteria that have to be met to qualify for TIF participation, right? Having ticked off all the requirements on that checklist, does the applicant still have to go for the board, before the Board of Aldermen for specific project approval?
Yes. The Board of Aldermen has the final approval. Then you would enter into an agreement with the city approved by the Board of Aldermen.
The reason I ask the question is it makes me wonder if it doesn't lead to some kind of capriciousness on the basis of relationships. Like, say that the fund, you want to protect the fund because you have an obligation to a large developer, and you might, say, deny a small applicant because it may just not be worth it.
Well, I think that's where we have to hold the heels of our aldermen to accountability and transparency in their decision-making.
Okay. Just clarification. Thanks.
Hi, Mike Fowler, downtown business owner. I just want to clarify on something you said earlier. If I understood you correctly, you said that this would not apply to any new construction. Is that correct?
New vertical construction.
Okay. Is that is that something that the commission on this particular structure set forth, or is that a state regulated?
It's state statute.
It is? Okay. You mentioned the property up here on 4th Street earlier, and that's what made me think of it, was the property up here on...
And the benefit to that particular property would be infrastructure improvements.
Right.
Which can be very significant on a large
but not
project.
vertical construction. Okay, good, thank you.
Further public comments?
I won't keep you long, and I'll probably, so you don't have to shut me up for some comments thinking that I might be biased on a certain project. I will put mine in writing. But I would really like to encourage the Alder people, with all the people that we've had here through our various meetings, to really reconsider and see if there's anything can be done on Highway 61 and that 32 corridor, because as you all know here on the board, we had a lot of people come in and kind of felt they were left out. And I understand this was started in '99, it was for the downtown. But also, I'll make one more statement, I'll shut up. That particular building downtown for the new investors, there was $1 million going to be put in that 9.5 years ago. And the person wanted more money than what was offered for it. So $500,000 offered for the property and $500,000 to fix it up.
All right. Ron, I don't think anybody would disagree with wanting to have an economic development vehicle for Highway 61. I think it just takes more planning and more cooperation with the other tasking entities, and as opposed to trying to just drive that train through it. But I think everyone agrees that, and there is nothing that would prevent the city from pursuing a TIF district along Highway 61. There's nothing that would prevent them from moving in that direction and trying to get something to happen there.
If written statements are made, are they going to be made public, hopefully or not? Or is that up to the TIF board?
Statements are made here tonight?
No, on the written, because you said some could be made written.
They can be read into the record, or they can be attached to the minutes. They would be part of the public record.
It would be part of public record.
Okay, good. And they have until next week to do that, right?
Are there any further public comments?
I just had one thing I just thought of here about, not being real familiar with the aldermen here in St. Genevieve, but of course there are aldermen in St. Genevieve that are not, that don't represent parts of the TIF district.
Yes, there are 2 aldermen that will represent, well, is it more than 2? Is it all in Ward 1?
I think it's all. 99%.
No,
I
there
think
will
some
be,
two others
there's
built
2
best to
wards
be
will be
in.
represented,
Yeah.
so that will be 4 aldermen.
And that happens everywhere.
Yeah.
Right, so that's, and there's no problem with that. I mean, those aldermen that don't represent any of the TIF district are representing people who aren't in there. So are they pretty much neutral on things?
No, they're still representing the city and what's best for the city, and making those decisions that they make, hopefully based on the wishes of their constituents, as well as the best outcome for the city of St. Genevieve.
Yeah, okay.
Everybody votes, it's not just the alderman for those 2 wards. Would you state your name again, please, sir?
Bob Schmidt.
Thank you, Bob.
So if we have any hope of getting, no, go ahead.
I'll gladly wait. Well, before I go home tonight and start the process of talking to my children and my wife about what we're gonna do, or what we're gonna try to do, William Hoffman, sorry.
Sir, would you please restate your name?
William Hoffman.
Thank you.
Want to clarify the deal about the sales tax. Is it 50% of the increased sales tax or 50% of the sales tax?
It's the increment, or the increase, the increment of the local sales tax,
Yes.
not state or federal.
Okay.
Tom, is that 2 cents? So to kind of, what is that? It's just 2 cents.
Total
isn't it?
total local sales tax excluding the ambulance is 4 cents. So 50% of that, of course, would be 2 cents.
Okay. Also had a question about lines, these districts, how it was drawn up, the designers. I know you said you put many hours into it, but I feel like Sam's Place and the house of mine on Gabourey and several others around, I think could have been included in that pretty easily. We can go all the way out Market Street to Built Best. We ought to be able to include some of the other buildings around the historic area, in my opinion.
Floodplain played a major role in the finished map.
Oh, there's a
So
lot
we had
of-
some exclusions where we just couldn't bring it in to qualify
Right.
under statute to make some, like that Sam's particular building, under statute can't be in the TIF district.
Well, I don't want to start an argument right here. I mean, probably wouldn't do me any good anyway. But my house on Gabourey Street has had water in it one time in the whole history of the house, 230 years on it.
And I appreciate your argument, but that's not a determination that the TIF Commission gets to make. We have to go with, Shannon, would you
Yes,
please?
if FEMA has designated the area as a floodplain, legally, it cannot be included within a TIF redevelopment area.
There's no floodplain on Washington Street.
Not by FEMA's maps, which were reviewed by the TIF Commission. when we were drawing the boundaries.
Okay, I guess there's no hope of ever getting those boundaries changed then,
Well,
Is there a process where they can appeal it?
well, that's not for us.
No, I mean, just
Um,
maybe.
If there was a significant project that somebody wanted to do that could get continuous, I think there would be a process where they could approach and have that discussion.
Right, I would assume that you would have to have that discussion with the city first. They
Yeah.
would make the application to FEMA to get it out of the floodplain. And then at that point, any changes to the boundary, if any significant changes to the boundary would have to come back to the TIF Commission. There would have to be amendment to the plan, a new public hearing, and go through this process one more time.
Well, could this be done before the commission's approved or any time after?
Do you have any idea how long that process would take to go through? I'm not making a statement, I'm asking an honest question. Do you have any idea how long that process would take to go through with FEMA?
Well, knowing the way things go with the government, probably a hell of a long time.
I totally agree.
That's why I'm asking the question, can this be done after the commission's
Boundary lines can be
formed?
The
redrawn.
boundary,
later.
yes. I think
That's
the
what it's
answer to
all
that
about.
question is a basic yes.
Okay. All right, I have also had a question about the RV park. Has there been any kind of areas, locations, whatever, tossed around where they might?
I think that's just been a discussion that frankly, a couple of the aldermen and some other people have said, listen, would this be good for our city? So as far as any specific locations, to my knowledge, absolutely not.
Well, whenever it is decided, who's going to be able to put their input in on the decision?
Well, I think that if you wanted to start an RV park tomorrow, you could go right through that process. So I'm not being smart, I just think that a developer would have to go through the process to develop an RV park the same as they would any other new construction in the city limits.
And I guess in that case, they would take into regard the area, like a lot of older buildings around, probably.
Well, I think there'd be a lot of different people would want to have that conversation. I think landmarks would most certainly be interested in that, and there's no specific plan at this time to say we're going to put an RV park right here, not by the city. And as far as I know, no developers has been talking about that either.
But it can be put in this TIF district.
There's nothing that would prohibit it from the TIF Commission standpoint.
An RV park, if I'm not mistaken, has to be approved by planning and zoning and the Board of Aldermen, because there is specific zoning requirements for an RV park.
Thank you,
So
Brenda.
at that point, the public would have a chance to say.
I mean, you know, I'm looking at both ends of it. I'm looking at maybe one being put someplace I don't want it put at, and I'm also looking at it might be something I want to do and would like to know where to put one.
I think that Brenda made it pretty clear that there are restrictions already in code, and that would have to go through the planning and zoning board and then be approved by the Board of Aldermen.
Okay, I've got one last question. Said no new construction, no new vertical construction. All right, whether you do know or not, I'm in the process of restoring the old blacksmith shop down on Washington Street, and we had to tear the back part of it off completely because it was just falling down. I mean, it wasn't even safe to tear it down, much less to try to save it. Does that mean that I couldn't qualify for TIF for that project down there because of that part on the back that's going to be rebuilt?
That's not new construction.
That would be, I think that would be, yeah,
That'd be renovation.
the rehabilitation. Also in the TIF as proposed, there are opportunities for demolition as well. Sounds like that might be too late now, if you've
Yeah,
already
that's
done
a little
it.
late.
But yeah, there would be, that would always be, that would be a decision of the Board of Aldermen to determine new construction and rehabilitation. Sounds like your case would probably be clear.
Well, that's an answer I definitely need to know, because, if that's the major part of the project, really. And, if that doesn't qualify, that's going to change the way I look at things on the project. I'd be apt to completely do the whole site if it qualifies, but if it doesn't qualify, I'll probably just restore the 2 apartments upstairs and the bottom part just be storage. So I'd have to kind of go to the board first.
Yeah, the board is going to have to approve the plan as written or amended, and then there'll be a process in place to go to the board.
Well, it's already approved. I've already had it approved, the whole project approved. I just need to know if it's going to qualify for TIF or not.
So the answer to your question is, I don't know. You got to go through the application process to see if it's going to qualify. It's not something I can tell you right now for sure.
You can't do that for at least another month, right?
Probably.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Tom, didn't we say additions were acceptable?
Yeah.
Isn't that what you're kind of talking about as an addition? So additions, as long as it's not over substantial, you can't take 10,000 feet and add 90,000, but additions are acceptable.
That's about good for the storage space.
Well, and we don't want to get, we don't want to mislead people that everybody that wants to put a new window in their house or add a bedroom is going to qualify for TIF, because that won't be the case. Yes, sir.
My name's Larry Viox, and I own a feed store over there by the railroad track. In Willie's comment there about the floodplain, I've been dealing on some of this my own down at St. Mary's and also down here. Most of the floodplain maps are about 100 years old, or maybe not quite that far, but they're really slow about updating them. I built a fertilizer plant in St. Mary's in 1990. There was a building built down there. Don Knight he manufactured golf bags. He built that building shortly before my building, about 3 or 4 years. They did a survey in 2005. My building that I built is about 6 foot higher in elevation than the golf bag factory. And I also own that building. It is not in the floodplain. The building, the fertilizer plant, is in the floodplain. I'm paying flood insurance on it. So I really think the city of St. Genevieve, and I don't know who's should have to take it on, we need to get behind whoever it is to try to get these maps updated, because like he said, there was water in his building, one time, and it is a problem if you keep people out of that.
Sir, I don't think anyone in the room will disagree with you, but that is not the function of.
But if you want to start with it, you have to start with the county commission.
Thank
They
you.
can steer you in the right way.
Thank you.
I'm working on that.
Further public comment?
I have one quick question. On the
TIF application procedures and that, do they have any timelines? Is the approximate length of time it takes to get an approval for a TIF?
That's honestly not even been discussed in the TIF Commission at this point. We're trying to get a document to the board for them to review and approve.
We'll say, any TIF agreement is a contract between the city and the developer, and contracts require 2 readings. So from the time that the document is presented to the board to the time that they could approve it, it's going to take at least 3 weeks, because they'll have to cover 2 meetings that are held every other Thursday.
Sir, could you please restate your name so we can get it on the record?
My name is Dale Quisenberry. Quisenberry?
Further oral public comments?
Probably everybody else understands this, but
Would
in
you please state
20,
your name, Patty.
oh, I'm sorry, Patty Nager.
Thank you.
23 years? Did I hear that said? That's when it will actually, you'll actually see some money? No?
No.
You can start when your project's approved. The TIF has a 23-year lifespan, so wherever you start in that 23-year period is the amount of time comes left for you to recapture your investment.
I was going to say that would make some of us really old.
That might make a difference, huh?
We got a long way.
Further oral comments from the public? Written comments from the public? Oral comments from the taxing jurisdictions?
Tom, the only thing I'd like to say is I agree with Linda on the appeals, the stress that the city can put that verbiage into the agreement if there's an appeal process, that the money comes out of the taxing funds to fight those appeals. You said that was, it would be, some of the agreement would be between the city and...
I don't think, I mean, is that something we can even state in the proposed tip? Who pays for any?
Well, I think what we had discussed with Linda is that in each agreement, there will be a statement that there will be no challenge, thus no need for defensive appeal.
And that will be up to the Board of Aldermen to make
Right.
that final determination.
With each individual project.
Yeah.
But as a board, we can recommend that be put in there.
Absolutely. Got it, we got that. Jason?
Thank you. Tom, they do understand they still have 1 more week if they didn't speak tonight, or they can submit.
Just fixing to cover that, because I hope that people can regroup and have more questions. The goal here is to get everybody's questions answered as clearly as possible. If there are no further comments from the taxing jurisdictions or the public, make a motion to continue the public hearing.
I'd like to make a motion, we continue the public hearing, and the date set for that second hearing, or our continuation hearing will be March 13th, 2012, 6 p.m. Pardon me? 13th. What did I say? Well, I'm getting there. I'm lucky I made it that far.
So the motion on the floor is to, is a continuation of this public hearing for March the 13th at 6 p.m. at this location.
Second.
A second. That will require a vote. Okay.
In favor.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion of the, everyone got the copy of the draft resolution?
While they're looking at that, I'd like to clarify one thing. If you want to submit comments, please do so, but if you have questions, don't hesitate to call City Hall. You don't have to submit those in writing, and ask the city administrator, and I'll be glad to either answer the question if I can or get the answer for you.
Yes, that resolution that's in there.
So in your board packets, you should have all received a copy of this resolution. It is in draft form. This is not an item that will be acted on tonight. You will act on this at the close of the public hearing, either on March 13th or if it's not continued to another date, when the public hearing is closed. The findings set forth in this resolution are by statute. And so I'd like to we wanted to get this before you so you could have a couple weeks to look at it or a few days to look at it before you act on it. To the extent you have questions, you can feel free to contact me. Any item in terms of a recommendation that you would like to add to this resolution, you can let me know. If you'd like, I can add the contractual provision to this resolution as a recommendation.
So how do we, what do we need to do to address that in the resolution? Or do we do anything to address it in the resolution?
You do not have to. If you would like to, if there's a motion to include it within the resolution, and that motion is approved, I can add it for your review by the next meeting.
I'll make the motion to include it.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Any further comment or questions at this time on the draft resolution? And everybody will have ample time to go through this brief item. Other business? Make a motion to adjourn for continuance.
Make a motion to adjourn and continue the second part of the meeting on March 13th.
Second.
In favor? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Wait here.
Leave me alone.